In 2.3a, we're going to look at solving equations algebraically. Now, we got all kinds of equations to mess with here, and we have a lot of methods under our belt to use. So let's just kind of make ourselves a notes. What methods do we have? I would first always check to see if you can take a greatest common factor out. Sometimes that's all you need. Then, could you factor? Then, could you extract a square root? All of these are just methods to solving. Then the fourth method is completing the square. And then the fifth method is quadratic formula. Any of these are legal. Some of them, sometimes you have a question, you can only do one of them. So let's just kind of chip away at these examples and see how we do. Now, let's look at number 1. 4x to the 4th minus 16x squared. Two terms. Usually when you have two terms, that should ring in your head, this is a GCF question. So if I can figure out a GCF, what do these two have in common? I can take a 4 out and an x squared. When I do that, I'll have x squared minus 4. Am I finished? No, I can keep factoring this. This is a difference of squares. Hopefully you recognize that. And then the 4x squared is good to go. Now I can solve each one of these. So 4x squared equals 0. That means x has to be 0. X minus 2 equals 0 means x is a positive 2. And then x plus 2 equals 0 means x equals negative 2. Let's try the next one. Okay, can I take a GCF out of this? There's 3 terms, but I can still do a GCF. Yes, I can take an x and a 5. So 5x, taking 5x out of each term. Let's see, I'll have x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 0. I can continue factoring here. Now, this is that multiply add thing. Multiply to get 9, add to get 6. What two numbers work? Well, 3 and a 3 work great. Now here's a little trick with the grouping method. If the coefficient right here is a 1, you don't have to do the grouping. You can go straight to the factors. So this would be x plus 3, x plus 3. And then bring down your 5x. Now I set each part of this equal to 0. And we'll get our answers. So this means that x is 0. This means that x is negative 3. And then x is negative 3. So this is a double root is what we call it. Look at number 3. All right, let's look at this. Can't really do a GCF here, can we? No. So what do we do? Well, let me back it up for a second. If I wrote this as x squared minus 4x plus 3, would you know what to do? Well, then it's just a trinomial. And I would do my multiply to 3 and my add to negative 4, which means it's a negative 1 and a negative 3, right? And I would just do x minus 1, x minus 3, and be done with it. Well, that would be great, except that these are higher powers, right? Well, the only thing that's going to change, since see how this is 2 and this is 1, this is half the power, and this is 2 and this is 4, is half the power. The methodology stays the same. All it's going to change is it's going to be x squared minus 1, and it'll be x squared minus 3. All right? Now, this brings up another issue. This is still squared, and I can still factor. This is a difference of squares. Now, x squared minus 3 doesn't factor further because 3 is not a perfect square. All right, so let's solve all of these. Okay, x minus 1 means that x is positive 1. X plus 1 means that x is going to be a negative 1. Now this one, x squared minus 3 equals 0. Move the 3 over. X squared is 3. Square root both sides. Absolute value of x is the square root of 3. So that means x is plus or minus the square root of 3. So it's a little more convoluted, but we can get there. All right. Look at this one, number 4. Number 4 is the same way, right? Here's to the 4th power, and this is half the power. So I know that I can factor this down to be x squared, and whatever I get is going to be okay. So I'm multiplying to 1, adding to 2, Well, hopefully that makes sense. It's just 1 and 1. X squared plus 1, x squared plus 1. Now, if you don't have an x squared minus a perfect square, which we don't, then it's not a perfect square and I can't continue factoring. However, I can set this factor equal to 0 and solve. So I'll have x squared equals -1. Same thing here, right? X squared equals -1. Take the square root of both sides. What do we know happens here? So x is plus or minus I. All right, in both cases, that's what it's going to solve to be. Let's look at number 5. 3x square root of x minus 10. Now, let's move the 10 over. So 3 square root of x equals positive 10. Divide by 3. And then I'll have the square root of x equals 10 thirds. Well, how do you get rid of a square root? Well, you square a square root, but you do it to both sides. So that means x is going to equal 100/9. And you can leave it like that. You don't need to make it a decimal. Just leave it as is. Look at number 6 here. All right. Let's move our 8 over first. It becomes -8. Now, we have a cube root. How do you get rid of a cube root? Raise it to the root's power, so it's to the third power. When I raise it to the third power, the 2x comes out. 2x plus 1 comes out. Now, -8 to the third power. What is that? Well, we know a negative times a negative times a negative is negative. And then 8 times 8 times 8, well, that's 64 times 8 is 512. So -512. And now it's just an Algebra 1 question. We can just keep going from here. We're going to subtract 1. So 2x equals -513. Divide by 2. That's a nasty little number. -513 halves. And that's okay. You can leave your answer like that. It's not a problem. Let's try a couple more. Number 7 here. Okay, we need to get the square root part by itself, so let's move the 4 over. Now we square both sides. So I'll have 5x minus 26 equals what, 16? Add 26 to both sides. 5x equals 42. Divide by 5. So x is equal to 42/5. Okay, hopefully you're getting accustomed to fractions. Just because it's a fraction doesn't mean it's wrong. So keep on going with it. Okay, look at number 8. We got 2 square roots. They're on 2 different sides of the equal sign. Hopefully this doesn't startle you. Because look, how do you get rid of a square root? You square both sides, right? So just start by squaring both sides. And let's see what happens. When I square both sides, the guts fall out, right? And now we're bound to an Algebra 1 question. Now, personally, I like my x's on the left, so I'm going to subtract the 3x, and that's going to give me 2x plus 1 equals plus 1, right? Move the 1 over, so I'll have -2x equals 0. So that means that x is 0. Easy enough. Okay, so this lesson is really about using all the tools we know. So thank you for watching. Now I want you to try the in-class portion, and we'll pick up here in class and see how you did. Good luck.